chance, goal, brilliant. Just fantastic by Nicola Barella. And he does it! And Italy are champions of Europe. Forza Italia.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie Sitdown, World Football Index's podcast to get your Calcio to go. We have a packed show, 75% of it at 75% capacity. I'm Frank Crivello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. I'd help if I could unmute myself here, but yeah, how are you?
I'm doing great. I mean, apologies. It's me that's late. I'll take the rap for it. I know what our chat has been patiently waiting, and we appreciate it. Kid's birthday party with his friends from school. This is the day that we chose to do that, and lots of cleanup and lots of running around and all that other stuff. So I'm exhausted. I got a fun story that I want to just throw in about how this party nearly didn't happen. We had 60-degree weather yesterday. And overnight, we had a severe thunderstorm watch and a heavy wind advisory. So my son actually has to get up to go to the bathroom, and he turns on the light to try to go, and the light doesn't turn on, and comes up to us and he says the power's out. So takes a flashlight, goes to the bathroom, comes back, goes to and this was like at 4:30 in the morning, and then I don't think he went back to sleep the entire time, and he even came into our room a couple times crying, worrying about the power being out to the point where he couldn't have his birthday party. So, how harsh is that? So that he was the one that found out, and had he not had to go to the bathroom, we would have all slept all the way through it because the power eventually came on. Like around 6:45, in the morning. So it was just one of those things. So yeah, I'm on fumes, but I'm pulling through for the people. I'm pulling through for the good folks who to listen to us on Serie Sitdown, to do this podcast with you. So that was my weekend. How was yours?
It was okay. It was a good weekend. A long weekend. Got a lot of stuff done. It was a crazy weekend because mostly for sporting reasons, not because of anything with me. But starting with the weekend, obviously Inter got a big win on Friday. But I think really, what I want to take this moment is to give a moment for thoughts and prayers to the fans in Mexico. The game between Querétaro and Atlas, riots went on. You heard conflicting reports of either people dead or severely injured. It was really chaotic, terrible scenes. Some of the photos I saw were just horrific. So hearts go out to everybody affected by that. It was just terrible scenes. They're very reminiscent of what happened between Liverpool and Juventus, many years ago. And so, hopefully there's some swift action because of it, because it was not good scenes from what I saw. But other than that, it was an okay weekend, I guess.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, and I echo your sentiments here. No question about that. So, we have a great podcast here. We had a big time match that affected the top of the Serie A table between Napoli and Milan. We had another interesting game between Roma and Atalanta. How are the other games going to unfold? An MVP candidate from a lesser-known team, as we talked about. We put together the clip from last week's podcast. Richard did a great job with the editing on that, and having it out there for you to review. And in the case for Domenico Berardi, he made more of a case today. So we've got that to break down, as well as everything else that happened over this past match week, along with the world's most popular hashtag game, Who Won Calcio Twitter. We don't have many nominees this week, so it will be a quick one. But we are not going to break down this Napoli-Milan game alone. We did bring a guest with us, earning his second cap with us here at Serie Sitdown, the producer and host of Forza Napoli Pod. You can find that at Forza Napoli Pod. We say ciao to Joe Fischetti. Is that right, or is it Fischetti?
That's right. Yeah. Ciao, gentlemen. Thank you. No, you got it spot on. They
didn't Americanize you. Thank God.
Yeah. No. I mean, some people do. I'm not too picky with it. But thank you for having me on. I was telling the guys off air that I may need to start declining these requests for Napoli Milan games. The last time I was on, it was the same unfortunate result. But happy to come on for any other round, just not Napoli Milan.
Solano doesn't come on anymore, so the curse has to get passed on to somebody. Why not? Why not you? So, but no, great to have you with us. Let's just jump right into the game. Right off the bat, Napoli Milan. I mean, everybody, the build up for this, everybody knew what this was about, what this was going to mean. I'm still not of the opinion here that as of match week 28, this game decides the title, because there's this small matter of Inter, still being in the mix, and a lot that still can happen between now. I mean, there's still 11 to 12 matches for everybody yet to play. So this doesn't. Actually 10 to 11, I should say. 10 to 11 matches for everyone yet to play. So for me, this isn't a title decider, not by a long shot. But this gives you a leg up, whether it's Napoli, whether it's Milan, a pretty good advantage. And in particular for Napoli, if they could win this game, because they won the reverse fixture at the San Siro, to have the complete head-to-head control over Milan should those tiebreakers come into play. And I don't know where they're at. Do you still, I believe, do you have the head-to-head on Inter? Have you played them twice?
They have the head-to-head on us.
They have the head-to-head. Yeah, they beat you at the San Siro. That's right. Okay. Yeah. So this would have been a very, very important step for Napoli. Certainly an important step for Milan to win, to pull ahead. So much on the line, a very intense atmosphere at the Diego Armando Maradona, and Napoli would bring out David Ospina in goal. They'd go with Di Lorenzo, Rachmani, Koulibaly, and Mario Rui across the back. Ruiz and Lobotka partnering in front of that back four. Zielinski in his usual spot, flanked by Insigne and Matteo Politano, with Victor Osimhen up front. Pretty standard fare for this Napoli, Joe. Lobotka's kind of been the stopper in that midfield. I thought, okay, it's good, but who is he out there to stop? When we talk about Milan's lineup, it's you wonder what his role is going to be as the game unfolds. But let me get your thoughts on what Spalletti picked for this game.
Yeah, it was pretty much as I expected. Lobotka, he just got back from an injury in the previous match, so against Lazio, he came off the bench. So this was his first start since he got injured. And Gisa, this was his first time getting in the squad since he got hurt. He went to AFCON, came back and picked up an injury. So it was between Lobotka and them, and Lobotka's been the better player out of the two. So that actually made sense to me, especially now with Napoli only playing once a week. Everyone's pretty well rested. And then everything else, I wasn't really surprised by either. I mean, our back four is pretty much set in stone. Koulibaly, Rachmani at center back, Mario Rui left back, who's surprisingly had a very good season, Di Lorenzo at right back, and then same thing up top, really. Lozano came back, but like Anguissa, this was his first time getting into the squad after a couple of months. So we knew Politano would likely start with Insigne on the left, Zielinski in the 10, and definitely Osimhen in the 9.
Pre-match, I did my, and I forgot to tag you on this. I usually like to, for games like this, because I can't sit down and do a video. I'm going to eventually start doing videos on this, but an hour before kickoff, it's really hard to do and get it edited and bring it up. I like to see the lineups first to kind of get an idea. So I just do the thread on Twitter, and the comments that I had, Osimhen, do you think his best position was going to be finding somewhere, getting on the back shoulder of Kalulu and getting somewhere in between him and Teo? To me, that's where I thought he was possibly going to be most dangerous. I think that Tomori would have, and would have and did when presented itself, would have been better defensively. But I thought that if he could have found those spaces, and early on in the game, they actually did play him in. Di Lorenzo played him in, right into that area that I talked about. But would you agree with me that that was probably the most dangerous spot for Osimhen, to get good chances? What did you see with his role in this game?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the biggest issue I had with the way we used Osimhen was that he was isolated too much. And this has been an issue for a little while now. We're not getting a whole lot of production out of our wingers. And when we do use Osimhen, it's often just booting the ball long and having him chase it down. And then when he gets there, even though he does an amazing job and he's usually the first player to the ball and he is a great hold-up player, he turns around and he has no support. And it also doesn't help that when we are going long to him, we're tending to play the ball towards the corner flag. So we're taking him out of the play a little bit, as opposed to being a little bit more in the middle of the park or, in the channel. Which reduces the impact that he's going to have. So I think we're using Osimhen in the right position, but I don't think we're setting him up for success necessarily.
Does it surprise you? Spalletti teams historically, when you look at them, his Romas, his Inters, his great wing play. With center forwards that can find the dangerous place in the box, and that's where they're going, and that's where they get it to him. You think of Dzeko at Roma, Icardi at Inter, that the wing play has not been, of the quality of Spalletti teams past. What's, is that surprising to you, given the quality that Napoli have in those areas?
I think for me it was surprising earlier on in the season, knowing how Spalletti's teams typically played. But I think we learned early in the season that wasn't going to be the strategy with this Napoli club. It was going to be a lot more building up through the middle and using, Fabian and Zielinski to pass their way forward. And even the wingers, especially when you have Politano playing, you have two inverted wingers. So they're both, with Insigne on the other side, they're both going to tend to cut in. Maybe you'll get the overlap from Mario Rui or Di Lorenzo on each side, but it's not really been a signature of this Napoli side this season. It's all been about going through the middle. Part of the problem, though, is that we seem to have abandoned that lately. And one thing we saw today with Milan is that when our opponents press, and we saw it against Barcelona as well, and I thought Lobotka would help being in the starting lineup to deal with this, is that when the opponents press and man mark, Napoli have struggled to find alternate ways to create chances, and we've resorted to this long ball to Osimhen.
Richard, Milan come out, Maignan in goal, Calabria, Kalulu Tomori, Teo on the left, Tonali and Benacer in the double pivot. When the lineup's released, Kessie is in a 10, which we know is not going to be a 10, and he's flanked by Leo and Messias with Giroud up front. Anthony points it out. I pointed it out on Twitter. I said Kessie's not there to be a 10. He's there to keep Zielinski under control. And I think the combination of him, Tonali, and Benacer are in there to stay connected, limit the passing lanes that Zielinski can find. And then I think the other important element of those three guys together was, where is Ruiz going to find the space from his position where he loves to come forward? We saw what he did against Lazio. And we've seen him do it time and time again this season. We've touted him as a possible player of the season candidate if Napoli can go on and win this Scudetto. Yeah. So, clearly, he's Salamaker's short. Salamaker's start short of being in total diffuse mode, but he was anyway. It was pretty clear what he was looking to do: cut things out, cut out any supply, into Osimhen's feet. Take that part of the game away. Take away the midfielders being able to come forward and be dangerous.
Yeah, it's obvious that that's what they're gonna go for. And you knew as soon as you saw those three in the midfield there that they were gonna try to cancel out the midfield for Napoli. And really, I thought both midfields were gonna cancel each other out, just because there's quality on both sides of the ball, and it's gonna be really hard to beat one another just midfield versus midfielder. And it would have to be the wing play or something else involved to really change this game up. And obviously the big worry looking at that starting lineup for Milan is Pierre Kalulu starting in the starting lineup, and it's not a worry necessarily, but he came on during a Coppa Italia match. That match was, as Anthony mentioned, we called very dull first Coppa Italia match between Milan and Inter. And so, question: how would he handle the speed and the smooth silkiness of Osimhen in this game? And we saw this game very well, right? And so it would have to be like which center back pairing we're going to do the better. I thought both pairings are really fantastic, honestly, for both teams.
Yeah.
But really, it was going to come down to the wing play and what could the forward do for either team. And that it was really a game of inches and Milan had a little bit of better in this one overall. But it was midfields canceling each other out, I think, ultimately. And what are we going to get from everywhere else? That was the question.
Right. And it was going to come down to something odd, and then maybe both teams were going to get something odd. We'll talk about that here momentarily. Joseph, Napoli certainly have more. I mean, the first half certainly went to the script that we're laying out for everybody here. Napoli had much more of the ball. They had 59% possession, edged Milan on shots with 3, didn't get anything on target. What did you see in their attacks and in their buildups? What were they? What was it? An element that they were missing something, or was it an element of Milan were ready for what was coming?
I think it was a little bit of both. Milan were definitely well prepared. It's easy as a Napoli fan to focus on what Napoli didn't do well, but I think it's important to acknowledge what Milan did well. And I mentioned the man-to-man marking. You guys mentioned that center back pairing. I thought Tomori and Kalulu did a fantastic job of shutting down Osimhen. It was he always had 2 players on him, and again, when he's isolated, you can afford to do that because logic tells you that if you have 2 players marking one guy, then someone else should be open, but not if that guy's at midfield trying to catch up to the play. So I thought Milan did a really good job, and they also. We talked about the wing play and how Napoli don't use the wings a whole lot. I don't know if that's something Pioli picked up on and planned for, because it seemed like Milan were really focused on taking away the middle of the park. I was surprised to see Kessie starting in the number 10. I thought Brahim would be there, but it makes a lot of sense when you put those 3 in the center of the midfield. It was really difficult for Napoli to create anything. And then on the flip side, I thought Napoli started the match well. And, it was very positive. We were going forward. It looked like we came to win this match, which has been a concern for Napoli fans when you look back at, say, the Inter match, where it was clear that Napoli was content to walk away from that match with a draw. So we were happy to see that positive start, but slowly, Milan grew into the match, and I would say by the end of the first half, it really felt like the momentum had swung in Milan's favor, where Leao was creating problems. Milan were looking dangerous in transition, even though the stats might suggest otherwise with the ball possession. We had a lot of the ball, but it was one of those matches where we didn't really do a whole lot with it, right? So yeah, that was a little bit concerning for me, for sure.
Richard, it seems like and I think we have to go back throughout all of last season, and maybe last season we were looking at it like, well, there's not a whole lot of people in the stands to really kind of, sway the match and sway the atmosphere and, charge up the home side among other things. So maybe last year it made it easy for Milan to be so successful in away matches under Pioli, but he's onto something, I think, with how he sets up against some of these big teams when he goes on the road. Because he did this in the derby against Inter. It's like, okay, let's we're walking into their environment. They're fired up. Crowd's behind them. Let's back off and let's let them take their best shot at us, and let's be ready for it. And then as the game goes on, we can make our adjustments and try to find a way to win the game. Now, in the derby against Inter, he had to do it coming from behind. So he brings on his more creative players to make that work. Here, he gets a lead. So now, and you see this, and he substituted accordingly with a lead versus, the derby, he substituted accordingly when he was behind. So he seems to be onto something with let's be patient, let's absorb things here for the first, half for sure. Not necessarily. I don't know. And I don't know if I want to totally call it Allegri ball, but in these big games, he seems to want to set up this way, and it's working.
Yeah, and it's Milan. I mean, a lot of the talk was that this game is home at Napoli. The crowd's gonna be fired up, and they absolutely were. I mean, it sounded like more than 100% capacity. It sounded like 120% capacity. It was so loud in there. But Milan there's two Milans, right? Milan is a far superior team on the road than they are at home. For so whatever reason, at home they just struggle. They lose at home, but when they're on the road, they are more together as a team, and they find ways to combat what the opposition is trying to do. And Joe and I were talking about this, how like before the game, how probably if you get towards the end of the game and the score's tied, both managers are probably content with a 0-0 or 1-1 or draw, right? You don't want to really ruin their Scudetto hopes right here. But both teams were going to try to go out and try to get a win early. And what we saw early on, with that crowd and Napoli, like Joe said, they came out and they really were attacking Milan. Milan just sat back and kind of soaked up the pressure. I thought Kalulu and Tomori did a fantastic job, just like Joe was saying on Osimhen. I mean, there were two controversial plays in that first half that I think ended up being fine as no calls. I thought Orsata had a really good game, actually. That's my opinion. There's a play where Benacer goes down by Koulibaly early in the box. You could question, was that a penalty or not? And then just minutes later, Osimhen goes in the box and Tomori takes him down. Good play between Kalulu and Tomori there. And you look at the replays for both, and you could call it either way. Joe, I mean, what are your thoughts on both of those plays early in the first half? Because a call either way, and they could really swing the momentum. I know Orsata was letting them play, but two plays you could go either way. I think, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to have your bias depending on which side you're on, right? So obviously, a lot of Napoli fans were looking at this and saying in Benacer's case, it looked like he was already on his way to ground when he kind of brushed against Koulibaly. I'm sure Milanisti don't see it that way. In Osimhen's case, it looked like there was pretty clear contact there. But generally, my preference is for the officials to officiate the game exactly like Orsato did. I want the game to be decided with the play on the field.
Right.
And we've seen Maldini call out the officials and not getting experienced referees for Milan's games, and I think on this night Orsato did a fantastic job. You needed someone with experience because it was such an intense match, such an important fixture. And the other thing is, like, it's easy again when you lose a match to try to find that one play that could have changed the outcome. But the reality is you should never put yourself in a position where you need to get a penalty call to get a draw, right? At the end of the day, Napoli simply did not do enough to win this match.
Yeah, and I think, what Joe was saying earlier, Frank, that, Napoli started out strong early part of the first half, and then Milan kind of grew into the game, and you kind of saw that they went with Benacer, really. It was interesting. We know the tactic that Kessie was the quote-unquote 10, and his job was to cover Zielinski, but I thought the interesting wrinkle for me was Benacer. He at times was higher than Kessie, and he was man-marking Koulibaly, which is, you're like, why is the midfielder covering a central defender? Granted, Koulibaly is probably the best in the world, but it was an interesting wrinkle that kind of threw that press against Napoli and allowed Benacer and Milan to grow into the game, and then they slowly started taking the game over. And while the possession was all Napoli's favor, Milan were certainly getting strong as that first half went on. And so, yeah, I thought that Pioli, whatever he's been doing, to circle back to your question, Frank, is that on the road he's finding ways to get this team to play as a unit, and they really are thriving under him and Zlatan's leadership, I think, and Kiar to an extent too when he's there. So yeah, it just whatever this team does on the road, it just seems to work every time, and it showed that first half how they just got stronger as Napoli started getting a little bit weaker as the half went on. So,
do you think that tactic of Benacer pressing Koulibaly, and coming out of his midfield position and taking his chances, is because it's just that's not something that Messias is good at doing? I think Messias you have in there to hope that you can get something out of him with the ball.
Yeah, and he struggled a bit too, I think, too.
Yep. Where Salamakers is a winger that is we've talked about this. He's a defender playing winger. He's a guy that can give good cover. He's a guy that's going to give you a lot of energy, recover the balls and things like that. Where Messias is a guy you're probably just taking your chances, leaving a little higher, letting him do things when the ball's around him and things like that. So I struggle. The only thing is I struggle to say that somebody won because they were hungrier. I think there was great intensity and great energy from both teams. To be perfectly honest, I think that, and Joe helped me out with this. I think as the game wore on, I think just Napoli cut a more, a collection of frustrating figures because there wasn't anything clear cut for them to take advantage of or to seize, and I think that when you do that, you just start taking some chances out of desperation rather than stick to your concentration, hope the other team loses theirs, and then something opens up for you. Would you say that you saw that a little bit out of Napoli, that as the game wore on, that some of the things that they're used to seeing being available to them over the course of the game just weren't there for them?
Yeah, that was part of it. But to be honest, I'm actually inclined to agree with Anthony here because, and many Napoli fans will say the same thing. And the way I would kind of depict it or ask people to think about it is, look at the way Osimhen was fighting for every single ball. This guy,
Yeah.
And he's been doing that since he came back from literally breaking his face, and he's going up for headers and putting his body on the line and, shoving Teo, and like he's got fire in him, and sometimes a little too much, but I'd rather have that than not enough. And then I contrast that with the play of Lorenzo Insigne, who came off probably his best game of the season against Lazio, but I think it says a lot when your captain is the first person that's taken off the pitch. The first substitution Spalletti made was to take Lorenzo Insigne off. So I think a lot of Napoli fans are frustrated that we're not seeing that type of fight and passion from the rest of the squad that we're seeing from Osimhen and Mario Rui. And then we saw it more from a guy like Adam Unas, who came off the bench. We saw it from Eli Velmas against Lazio coming off the bench. Now, granted, fresh legs against tired legs, there's always going to be an advantage there. But I don't disagree necessarily with Anthony. Napolitani want to see a team that's more fired up and trying to put everything on the line to win these matches, and it sometimes doesn't look that way.
And I wonder. Go ahead.
I thought the Elmas and Unas introductions were 10 minutes too late, and I know that hindsight's 20/20. Yeah, but those should have been done on the hour.
Another criticism of Spalletti lately is that he's making his changes too late. You could say that the same thing with Dries Mertens, who sometimes doesn't get brought on at all. And, we're talking about the all-time leading scorer in club history, and he came on, I think, in the 75th minute. So I completely agree with that as well, Frank.
Yep, and just to add in, and Richard, I know you're going to make a point here. I think there was nothing in this game for Zielinski. And I'm looking at his stats. I mean, 2 crosses. That's it. I mean, nothing. He didn't create any scoring chances, didn't shoot. Got fouled once. I think it was attempting to dribble past a player. That's it. I mean, you see Zielinski being far more productive than that. Fabian Ruiz. I mean, these are the players that you have been big for Napoli over the last several weeks. Fabian Ruiz, no goals, no assists, no chances created, no crosses, no shots. That's for what he's contributed this season. That's incredibly rare. Yeah. Richard.
Yeah, and I want to give credit where it's due, and I want to say it's Art Morelli, but I follow so many Napoli fans on Twitter, like it's hard to keep track. But I think it was Art that said it, that Napoli, they score their goals by doing the methodical way, right? Just keep going at you and try to break you down and stuff like that. And Milan, to their credit, both Kalulu and Tomori are fantastic back there. Probably played as good, if not better, than Koulibaly and Rahmani. And then Milan, as a defensive unit as a whole, played better, and they were making it frustrating for Napoli where they couldn't do that. And they couldn't be the methodical self because there's nothing there for them. And then the game really relied on chaos. And as Art puts it, Milan are better in a chaos situation than Napoli are. Napoli need their goals through methodical breaking through of a team, and Milan don't need that. Milan can play in chaos. They can play. They're probably better when they play under chaos than they do try under structures. So I thought that was an interesting point, and I agree with that because you do see Milan play their best when things are chaotic and you don't know what's going on. The goal came about it because that way, and it seems like sometimes if Milan just try to focus on being methodical, it doesn't always work out. They try to be too cute, too fancy, and it never works out. So they needed a game like this to really get a goal in this game. Otherwise, I think if Napoli were able to do what they normally can do, it could have been a totally different story in this game.
I mean, and then okay, so let's get to the goal. Giroud, poacher's goal. Redirects an off-target effort. I mean, it's just right. It's a right place, right time goal. A game of this kind of intensity, and with what these two teams were doing, and how this game was going. If there was going to be a winner, it was going to be something that looked like that. I don't think there was a moment of brilliance coming from either team that was going to decide this game. There were moments of brilliance in this game. The only problem was the other team was ready for it. So this was how the goals were going to come in a game like this, and that's how it was. I thought that Napoli would get one like it, and that would end 1-1, but this had a 1-0 to either team or a 1-1 with the goals just being, bad luck for the team that conceded it, and just maybe a right place, right time kind of situation like Giroud here, having the presence of mind to get himself into an onside position, let's face it. And be in that position to just redirect the shot. Let's say it was a shot by Calabria. He's going to get credit for the assist here, which I think is laughable.
Yeah, it was a bad shot because it was going way wide. But luckily, not luckily for you, Joe, but for us, it went right to Giroud, who just deflected it perfectly.
So Richard has Giroud lifted the curse of the number 9 with Milan to you?
Oh yeah.
You think so? Are we done with this curse now, or
We don't know. It depends. The question is, have they lifted their curse of selecting bad number 9s? Right. Giroud is obviously a very experienced player, and he has a history with him, so obviously he could do well. Milan just made bad choices in the past, I think, that really resulted in those and that curse, if you want to call it. But Giroud really, it's funny because Giroud scores a lot of goals at home and Ibra scores a lot of goals on the road. And for some reason, both those players can't do the opposite, right? This is his first goal away from San Siro. And so, for him, it's a weight lifted off his shoulders, because now he's like, okay, I can score wherever I go. And really, he's a big game player. He scored against Napoli. He scored against Inter. He scored against Roma. He shows up in these games, which is great for Milan fans. I think the number 9 curse is definitely lifted. If you ever want to say it was a curse, if anything, it was a curse on management.
Yep. So, late in the game, Osimhen got free. Did Maignan save that, or did that hit the post? I think Maignan saved that. Maignan got a glove. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
because it didn't sound like it hit the woodwork. So, okay, so Osimhen gets the chance late that possibly could have tied it. Tried to catch Maignan at his near post. Maignan saves it. It ends 1-0. Milan win the game. Joe, you guys are on 57 points. You're in third. You've played 28. Inter have a game in hand on everybody. We'll talk about them later. I'm looking at, maybe a point that you could have gotten out of this game. And then I'm also maybe looking at 2 points dropped at home against Inter with all the chances that Osimhen had. It's in touch. It seems like for Napoli, every season we keep talking about this with them. Something like this is within touching distance for them, and yet they keep getting pulled back. As a Napoli supporter, speak for the Napoli supporters here, and we're going to give you a chance to just vent here. and share some frustration. We're your therapists. We're Milan supporters, but we're your therapists. We're listening.
Yeah. Well, first, there's a reason why I don't have any hair on this head, because Napoli for a long time, right? And you're absolutely right. It seems like every year there's some performance like this one or other ones that it's not like the opportunities haven't been there. This was the 4th consecutive round that Napoli could have gone top of the table with a win. And we only won one of those matches. And even that win was a 94th minute, wonder goal by Fabian. Otherwise, it could have been 4 missed opportunities to go to the top of the table. So we can look at this match. We could look at the Inter match, Cagliari. There's a whole bunch of them. You guys were talking about how good Pioli is away from home against these big clubs. Napoli's issue this season has been getting results against big clubs at home, where you would think they would have an advantage. I think it's now 13 points dropped at home, 11 points dropped away from home, right? You would expect to have a better home record. So there's a lot of frustrations. Again, fans are really frustrated with what seems like a lack of effort. One thing in the first half of the season, I would say we need to criticize Spalletti as well, because in the first half of the season, he seemed to have a plan B and a plan C. And when we would fall behind, right from the very first match against Venezia, where we didn't fall behind, but we got an early red card, he found a way to get the result. And, we were seeing trick pieces on set plays and all kinds of stuff. And as the season has progressed, we're seeing less and less of that. And it's, people warned me about this with Spalletti, that he tends to maybe be a little too conservative.
Do you think the pressure's getting to him? That's why he's being more conservative?
I think
not to mess up,
he has a very particular owner that's most concerned about finishing in the top 4 more than anything, because we all know what that means financially. And I think maybe he's taking a slightly too conservative approach, because it just so happens that the way the Serie top of the table has gone this season is you're competing for the Scudetto while you're also competing for top 4, right? So you're looking forward and also a little bit looking over your shoulder. And people will say, well, if you just try to win the Scudetto, then you don't need to worry about looking over your shoulder, right? You'll get ahead, and maybe that'll happen anyways, because Atalanta have been dropping points. But it does feel like there hasn't been enough of that burning desire to win matches. I felt like that second part of the first half, the second quarter, if you will, felt a lot like the Inter match, where there just wasn't enough, and not enough creativity, and you mentioned the substitutions being late. You start to wonder, how badly does this team want to win the Scudetto? And that's what's frustrating for Napoli fans, because it's been so long, right? I mean, I know you guys are frustrated, and it's not been we haven't won a Scudetto 3 times as long as you guys haven't. Everyone had to deal with this Juve decade. But Milan were amazing before that, and Napoli were toiling down in the lower divisions and had to work their way back up. So yeah, for a Napoli fan, it's frustrating when you find yourself in a position to be top of the table with 10 matches remaining, and you just keep blowing opportunities to do that. And we can pick which matches Napoli drop points at the end of the season if they don't win the Scudetto, but just the whole thing is frustrating in general.
It's got to be. I mean, I understand the frustration 100%, and I guess it's also even more frustrating when your midfield is as good as they are, right? We saw in this game, yes, Koulibaly's gonna play wonderful, but you got Lobotka in there, who's been playing very well lately, and it seems like he was doing fairly well for the most part. I mean, he was, anytime Teo or Leao tried to go 1-on-1 against him, he seemed to stuff him. If he wasn't him, he was helping out Koulibaly to really gang tackle him. Where's my head at? But besides that play and the comment, it seems like for whatever reason, game in and game out, something you're not getting that extra oomph, if you will, as the season's gone on, like you mentioned. And I wonder if the burden of trying to win a Scudetto and not make as many mistakes, sometimes get a little too conservative. That was kind of my criticism of Pioli for a while as well. He's kind of molded a little bit better about that. But are you worried now that maybe the help, we talk about how Osimhen has this fire that you wish the rest of the team would have? It seems like Insigne is kind of checked out a little bit now, almost. I don't want to say that, but it kind of seems that, gets first, like you mentioned, first person taken out of the game. And this one, Politano wasn't his normal self. It seems like, I don't know, Lozano just come back from injury. Is it that the wingers aren't playing well, or is that Spalletti's now just trying to hone in on a couple guys, Insigne and Politano, and really trying to go with them? And like you mentioned, they don't even bring in Mertens half the time. It's like, what the hell are you thinking? It's a great player to leave off the bench. Look, what are you doing? What's going on? To kind of deep dive more into Spalletti and the thinking of what the struggles are.
Yeah, not to give you a sort of a cop-out type of answer, but I think it's a combination of all those things. I think it is the wingers have consistently underperformed this season, and the midfielders, the Zielinskis and the Fabians and occasionally Elmas, they've stepped up and they've contributed where they can, but you can't rely on goals from those guys. You look at even Osimhen, and Napoli fans will come after me for criticizing him, because he does not deserve any criticism, to be honest. He's been phenomenal when he's played. Obviously, he's missed a lot of time. But the one knock on him is that he hasn't scored against the big clubs. You guys talked about Giroud. those two crucial goals against Inter, scores the winner in this match. He's showing up and getting goals when it matters. Osimhen, unfortunately, hasn't been scoring against the big clubs, and he had a couple of chances. There was that one chance, I think it was right after Milan scored, where he played a give and go with
immediately,
and he shot it straight at Magnan, right? So there's that. There's Spalletti. I mentioned how he's kind of changed as the season has progressed with the late substitution. So there's a few different things there. A lot of people, one of the most frustrating things for Napoli fans, myself included, is that we always end up saying we just don't have a winning mentality, right? And it's frustrating because we've brought in new players, we've brought in new coaches. Some of the older players are slowly departing. Insigne's on his way out, and yet there still doesn't seem to be this winning mentality. And it's unfortunate because it seemed like that was something that Spalletti had fixed, earlier in the season. And also lately, he has the players talking about winning the Scudetto. Like, they're not afraid to talk about that. They're not afraid to jinx it, or, the whole Napoli is very superstitious. We don't talk about these things. And they've been talking about that in the media, but then we still miss these opportunities. So, and the harsh reality might be that, as much as we love this team, as much as we recognize all the talent on the team, they might not be good enough, right? It could just be something that simple, because you look at it, we have no excuses anymore. We're not playing in multiple competitions. We've recovered from all of our injuries, and yet we're dropping points.
This is kind of a nice, sorry, Richard.
Go ahead.
I think your concerns kind of lead into an interesting question here. You think that maybe not good enough. Well, I'm looking at your next 5 games. Verona away, Udinese home, Atalanta away, Fiorentina home, Roma at home. By comparison, when you look at Milan, and this is, I take this with a grain of salt because Milan have sucked recently against teams in the bottom half, but Empoli at home, Cagliari away, Bologna at home, Torino away, Genoa at home. We could, if it goes to script, there could be a possibility that Napoli are maybe 8 or 9 points back of Milan by the time they're through those 5 games.
Yeah, but you also have to look at the rest of the schedule, and because Milan have I don't know the games off the top of my head, but I think Milan closed the season with 4 or 5 really tough matches.
Yeah, they're at Lazio. Let's see. They're at Lazio, host Fiorentina, at Verona, hosting Atalanta.
Yeah, so I think to me what that translates to is, unfortunately, an Inter Scudetto, because they have the easiest schedule. I think the only thing that we collectively can hope for is that somehow they upset Liverpool, which is almost impossible. But maybe, who knows? We'll cross our fingers. I guess in your case, you guys are probably conflicted because you still want to win the Coppa Italia. It's still a trophy. If Inter win that match, it's not the end of the world, I guess, because they have one additional match and it comes at an inopportune time. I think it's between rounds 36 and 37, something like that. But at the end of the day, I think the reason why Inter are still the favorites and probably will be for the balance of the season is because they have that game in hand. So if they win that, they're still top of the table. And then from my recollection, they have the easiest run in out of any of the teams at the top.
It's fair. Richard?
Yeah. What I was going to say is you talked about teams not being good enough. This is arguably the best team Spalletti's had as he walked into a team, right, from any of the teams he's had before. And he's had some great teams before, but this fresh off the bat is probably the best team he's had. My question is to you. I think they're talent-wise, they're good enough. The mentality part that's the question, because you talk about having a winning mentality, and why Roma has struggled so many times because that winning mentality. And the Inter took a while to get there because of that mentality. Conte kind of changed that with them, and I know you're hoping Spalletti does the same thing. Is that do you think it's more? You mentioned the mentality thing. Do you think it's a combination of both? I certainly think this is arguably the best starting 11 in the league, talent-wise. I'm not talking about mentality-wise or anything like that. This team just plays such beautiful football. They're so aesthetically pleasing. But I argue that maybe it's the mentality thing, and that's really the main thing holding you guys back, because I think talent-wise, you guys are as good as anybody in this league, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I say maybe we're not good enough, and I don't know if I even believe that myself, to be honest, because you're right. The talent is there, and one thing I give Spalletti credit for is that the way he's trained this team is that even if you do lose players to injury or international duty or whatnot, the next guys are ready to come in and fill those holes. And we saw that even when we were going through the tough stretch where we lost to Atalanta and I think we tied late to Sassuolo, we played actually quite well with the backup players. So yeah, maybe it is the mentality and buckling under the pressure. It's a heavy load to carry in that city, especially right with the fans have been waiting a long time. They're super passionate, and maybe that's weighing down on them collectively, including on Spalletti. I don't know. But it's hard to figure out. This is the question Napoli fans have been trying to figure out for a long time, because the teams that we've assembled, this time maybe part of it is also that we always have this array of talent, but they're not always all firing at the same time. Especially in the home stretch of the season. This season, the big issue has been on the wings. Insigne seemed to really be affected by that, the whole contract situation, and we can blame whoever we want to blame, whether it's him, De Laurentiis, both, whatever, but it seemed to affect them. And you guys can probably relate with Frank Kessie for large portions of the season, right? These things do weigh on players. We went from having what seemed like the best right wing combination of players in the league coming into the season with Lozano and Politano, and then neither of them have done particularly well. They've both dealt with injuries this season. And so, and then Frank mentioned Zielinski earlier and his lack of anything in this match. When he shows up, he's unstoppable, but he has a lot of games where he doesn't show up. So I feel like part of it is also that we have all of this talent. We just can't get everybody firing at the same time for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
that's fair. That's fair.
Let me ask you about Insigne. Obviously, he means a lot to Napoli. He means a lot to the club. I appreciate that you're drinking beer. By the way, you did the right. You're doing this right. You come on here, have a beer. And that's what I say. We come on to Serie, sit down. I want to feel like we're sitting at a table having a beer, talking about this. Okay. But anyway, Insigne, he means a ton. At some point, you got to set aside sentiment for the good of the team. Is he really, right now, your best answer at left wing? Because I've seen some good games out of LG Felmas. And is it time to pass the torch, if you will? Okay. Given Insigne is going to get an occasional game here and there, but to start him consistently when he's been inconsistent, brilliant against Lazio. Stunk against Milan. Okay. Barcelona game, I don't know what that corner was. I don't think you know. I don't think any Neapolitan knows. He scored a penalty, so he kind of made up for it. But is it time to? I mean, you're still fighting for something, and he might still be an important piece. But at the same time, there might be a part of Spalletti that should look a little bit long term and say maybe Elmas is a little bit better here, and we might want to figure out a graceful way to phase Insigne out. How do you feel about that? How do you think Napoli fans feel about that?
So I'm really torn on this. I think for most of the season, and largely because Lozano has been hurt for the last few months, I still feel like Insigne is the best option on the left wing. Okay. It's just we don't have many good options at the moment. I think an informed Lozano might actually take over that left wing. I'm leaning more towards Lozano than I am towards Elmas. I think Elmas, I've been kind of flip-flopping on this. When he has a good game, I think, okay, maybe he is the future replacement for Insigne. Instead of, we save some money, we have a guy that's readily available. He seems to perform the best out of all the positions that he's played in, which are pretty much everywhere but in goal. He seems to perform the best on the left wing. But at the same time, I look at that Lazio match and I think, he's the type of, and I was on the rant recently and I compared him to Felipe Caicedo a little bit, in the sense that he's one of these guys that when he starts, he tends to underwhelm, but off the bench, he could be a high impact player. So I'm not 100% sold yet. I know that when he plays for North Macedonia, he absolutely destroys it on the left wing, but I think it's a different type of environment where he's one of the more talented players on the team, and they're relying on him, and he's able to take players on one-on-one. With Napoli, he's got lots of talent around him, and I find that he tends to take too many touches. I've seen some improvement on that, and with the way Spalletti plays, it's very similar to Sarri ball, right? It's quick, short passes, and the ball always seems to get stuck when it gets to Elmas. He takes a few too many touches, but he can learn to do well. But yeah, I'm conflicted because Insigne really hasn't had that great of a season. He's a great playmaker. He hasn't scored enough goals, and I don't know if Spalletti's thinking along the same lines that I have, in the sense that, we knew the contract situation was a burden. And then once that was resolved, we all thought, okay, maybe now that weight is, even though he's not renewing, that the contract weight is off his shoulders. We know he's going to leave at the end of the season. Maybe his performance will improve. Didn't really change much. Then he had that goal against Lazio, which was his first from open play all season. And we thought, okay, maybe he just needed to get that monkey off his back. And now, that weight is off his shoulder and the play is going to improve. And then we saw, against Milan, that it didn't. So we'll see. If I personally, I don't think Spalletti's going to make that change. I think he just has too much respect for Insigne. It's still his captain, and he's gonna respect that armband.
For the last 10 games of the season, right? Scudetto aside, what do you want to see Napoli do? I mean, obviously win out maybe, but what do you want? What are you looking to see from Napoli for the remainder of the season?
I guess what I want to see is that identity that Napoli showed in the first half of the season, where it was a team where one of the things we liked about Spalletti compared to Gattuso is that Gattuso it seemed like he was playing more not to lose than to win. Whereas Spalletti's Napoli was pushing forward, trying to score goals, and even after scoring goals, trying to score more goals. And so I think that's what I want to see most from Napoli: play our style of game, put the ball in the back of the goal as many times as we can. We know defensively we still have conceded the fewest goals in the league, so we're set there. But I want to see a more attack-minded team. I want to see a team that's hungry for wins, to use that term again that we saw from Anthony earlier. Because lately, I don't know if it's just the length of the season and the number of games, but they've been looking tired. Now that, again, Napoli playing once a week, even against some of these tougher opponents, against some of these clubs like Hellas Verona and Sassuolo that have been thorns in our side in the past, I want to see them go. I want to see them take out their frustration after a draw to Inter or a loss to Milan. I want to see them take that energy and just destroy a team like Hellas Verona. and to be honest, just to throw a little tip out there, I think they will beat Hellas Verona, even though everyone's looking at that and saying, oh, Hellas Verona, they always find a way. I think under Tudor, Verona is much more attack-minded, which means it's an open game, and that plays into Napoli's strength. So I think, for the bettors out there, I like Napoli as an early play next round against Hellas Verona.
We'll see what happens. I mean, I think there's some really dynamic dudes on the Hellas Verona team that make it very, very hard to play.
I know.
But no, that's going to be a great game. Looking forward to catching that next weekend. So, Joe, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm going to give you the floor now. Plug anything you'd like and share with those watching and our listeners what we need to know about you, what we need to know about Forza Napoli Pod, and things that you're up to. Have at it.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure. It has been a little bit of therapy. I'm feeling a little bit better now than I did earlier in the day, so thank you for that. All of my work is audio only. It's old school.
That's fine.
At Forza Napoli Pod on all your social media channels. You can find the podcast, Forza Napoli Calcio Podcast, on all the usual streaming platforms. And for those that are listening, my Twitter handle's at Joe_Fisketti5.
Wonderful. And let's do it again. We'll do it when Napoli don't play Milan, so we don't curse you. So,
yes, please.
Okay. So you're saying you want us to do this against Sassuolo or Hellas Verona, like one of your bogey teams.
Salernitana.
Well,
Yeah, maybe we should just wait for Napoli to beat someone, and then I'll just come on.
Yeah, I'll call you afterwards. Yeah.
we'll have you on call, and if they win, you're in, right? Is that how we're going to do it?
That'll work.
So, excellent stuff from you, Joe. Thank you for joining us, and your third cap is not going to be too far away.
Thanks, gentlemen. It's a pleasure.
All right. Joseph Fischetti, Richard. Excellent stuff from him. I do want to follow up with you. I mean, yeah, it's, on the Milan side, pretty breezy next 5 games. But, if we've learned anything from the last few weeks, nothing's really breezy with Milan. Yep. And it's not realistic to expect a maximum 15 points from 5 games. But when you're looking at this, and when you're looking at the last 5 games, you're looking at your run-in, hosting Empoli, at Cagliari, hosting Bologna, at Torino, hosting Genoa. You got to get every point you possibly can, out of those 5 games. 15 probably, hard to expect. But, with respect to being a title contender, at a minimum 11, which would be 3 wins and 2 draws. I could live with that at a minimum. I would want more than that, but I would think if they don't get at least 11 out of the next 5 games, it's going to be hard for them to win this title.
Yeah, and I think, we've seen that Milan plays well as the coming from behind and trying to catch Inter at the top of the table or whomever, if Napoli's at the top, whatever. They like playing from behind. At the top, they look very unsure of themselves, and that's going to be the key is like, can Zlatan, Pioli, and the boys really hunker down and take ownership of being in top spot? Yes, I know Inter have a game in hand, but really take ownership and really dictate the pace as opposed to just see what happens and then, we're behind, let's play good again. No, if they want to win the Scudetto, or if Napoli wants to win the Scudetto, Milan really needs to take the step up and take the lead, start dictating plays, beating these teams that you mentioned, right? Yeah, we'd love to see max 15 points, but like you mentioned, minimum 11 points because it's a hard stretch down at the end. And so, yeah, we'll see what Milan's made of. But what I think we see in this from this game, at least, Milan were playing well. They're the best team against the top 6, against the Seven Sisters. Milan's the best by far. We saw that Bennacer played really, really well in this game. Kessie actually played very well. I thought he started slow, as did Bennacer, and they really came on game. For the role he was expected to play, I thought Kessie did well. What we're also seeing is that, Romagnoli got hurt last game during the Coppa Italia first leg semifinal. Kalulu comes on, and though he's not a natural center back, he is probably, in my opinion, the right center back pairing for Tomori. Sure. I know everyone wants to talk about Botman and whoever else, but Kalulu and Tomori, they look like they've been playing together for years. And so I think with those two back there, I think they should start the rest of the way out. And then
the slightest thing I worry about with Kalulu deputizing as a center back was what I was worried about with Osimhen. The classic 9 that has a height advantage on him, that if he gets service, okay.
Sure.
If that 9 gets service and he's in the area where Kalulu doesn't have a chance. Now,
they play well together. They've been reading each other. Like, that's what's, like you mentioned, like, there were times in the game where Osimhen would maybe look like he's taking advantage of Kalulu, and all of a sudden Tomori comes in and swoops in and cleans it up. And if he can continue doing that, I think he'll be okay. But you're right. Kalulu doesn't have the speed of Tomori or the strength of Tomori, but he's very solid. He's very solid back there. And for a 21-year-old, that's pretty impressive.
Sure. I like his recovery. I like his positioning. And I like his ability to read the game and get to positions early. And I think that is working really, really well for him. It's the aerial part of it that if Milan ever plays a good crossing team with a good 9 that has a height advantage on Kalulu is anywhere near him, that 9 wins, and Milan are going to have to figure out how to deal with that.
Yeah,
so
100%.
That's the only worry I have about that, where I'd rather have a bigger guy in there that might be able to deal with that. So otherwise, I'm with you. As a combination back there, they were outstanding. They were outstanding in this game. I mean, Maignan wasn't troubled. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the Kalulu-Tomori combination. Calabria was excellent against Insigne. And the midfield three was brilliant. I mean, they dominated this game. You can pick any one of those three.
Yeah.
Kessie, Tonali, Benacer to pick for man of the match here. I'd probably lean Benacer out of the three, but you could pick any of them for the role. You know, when you're talking about relative to the role that you're being asked to play in a game, and when you tell me that between, if you're going to tell me that we're going to play Napoli, okay, and Fabian and Zielinski combined are going to get 0 shots.
Take it.
That's a damn good performance from the Milan midfield. That is a damn good performance.
Yeah.
Because there are really and that is why we talk about them being up there with the collective of midfield, as a collective being one of the best midfields in the league, with Inter, with Napoli. Napoli had a bad day today. Yep. But they had a bad day because of how Milan performed, and they were ready for it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So that was Napoli-Milan. We, as usual, we get the marquee game, Richard, and we're all over it.
Yep.
So we don't miss anything with it. I don't think we just don't get the groundskeeper's name. It's otherwise we would really be all over it, right?
That's right.
Oh man. So match week 28, all yours. Take it away. Batch the rest.
All right, looking at match week 28. Well, it started off on Friday. It was the champions Inter hosting Salernitana. Many wondered if it would be maybe a blip in the radar for Inter. It was not. 3 goals from Lautaro Martinez. He breaks his huge funk of goal scoring drought. Goals in the 22nd, 40th, and 56th minute. The third in particular was the goal of the week candidate for me. Dzeko would round it out with 2 goals in the space of 5 minutes in the 64th and 69th. 5-0 win. Inter win resoundingly. Moving to a very interesting game, Udinese against Sampdoria. All the goal scoring started with her early on. Delofeo gets a goal scoring started early in the 3rd minute, followed up by Udogi, gets a goal in the 12th minute. A minute later, Caputo with a nice finish there to make it 2-1. You're thinking it's going to be a shootout here. Unfortunately, that was the last goal of the game, but it was interesting performance, very good performance by both teams. And Beto had a really great opportunity late in the game where he came off the crossbar. Really, he gets up so well on those headers. But 2-1, Udinese win that game. Arguably one of the games of the weekend. Roma Atalanta. 1 goal in this game. That's all that was needed. Surprisingly, between these two teams. Tammy Abraham off the wonderful world-class play by Zaniolo, capturing the ball down and then feeding Tammy Abraham for the goal there. 1-0. We'll get more to this game in a minute, but big win for Roma without Mourinho on the sideline there. Moving on, Cagliari hosting Lazio. You would think maybe Cagliari put a bit of a fight in this one, especially they're trying to get out of the relegation fight. Unfortunately, Lazio weren't having any of it. First was a penalty. Immobile converts in the 19th minute. Luis Alberto with one of the goals of the week. First world-class touch again. We talk about touches. Zaniolo, same thing with Luis Alberto in his own end. Kind of leads the breakaway and then gets the ball back at the end to get a goal there. 2-0 at that point in the 42nd minute before halftime. Second half, Felipe Anderson doing a little dance, a little samba to get his goal. 3-0 Lazio win on the road. Nice win there.
Was that them, or were Cagliari's defenders dressed as matadors? I'm still trying to figure that one out.
A little bit of both.
That was the Ole defense.
Definitely the Ole defense. No, it's a 2-hand touch rule there. No tackling.
We're playing flag football.
Flag football. There we go. Flag calcio. Right. Moving on to Genoa Empoli. This game lacked goals, but it was certainly entertaining. Defensive effort by Empoli. Blesson really has his team playing well, but unfortunately, they're just not getting wins and lots of draws for them. This game ends 0-0, but great save by Vicario on Portanova, as well as a goal line clearance by Ansali. That was really good. But 0-0, this game ends in a draw, and then the next game, Bologna-Torino, also ends in a draw. This game not as entertaining. It had some good back and forth between both offenses, but 0-0, the teams share the spoils there. Moving on to yet another draw, but this time a score draw. Fiorentina hosted Hellas Verona. Goal scoring started by, Christoph Piątek.
It's the system, stupid.
It's the system. He gets his 5th goal in 7 games or 8 games for Fiorentina. Wonderful start for his tenure at Fiorentina. 1-0 there. Caprari would convert a penalty at 20th minute. He puts him on 10 for the season. Verona are the only team, I think, in Serie A that have 3 10-goal scorers on the team. So good for them. But 1-1, they share the points there. This is an entertaining game as well. We talk about the MVP candidate, or at least in our opinion, Domenico Berardi, excuse me. He would heavily feature in this game at Venezia. Sassuolo were goal scoring started early. Scamacca wonderfully played ball to Raspadori. They get the goal early on lead. We would see 3 penalties in this game against Venezia. Berardi would convert 2 of them, one in the 17th, one in the 71st, and then Scamacca would convert one in the 29th minute. There was a penalty that was called for Venezia late in the game after the coach got a red card for complaining about it. But Consigli made a great save on that penalty save. Thomas Henry did get a goal in the 34th minute, but all for naught. Sassuolo spank Venezia at Venezia 4-1. And then to round out the games, Juventus hosting Spezia. This is going to be, we wondered how, what kind of game this would be. Spezia obviously did Milan dirty the week before. And so, this game was tight. What's his name? Thiago Motta really has his men playing stingy ball. And the goal scoring did start early. Morata off a turnover. Provedel has been having a fantastic year defensively. He's the highest save percentage in the league. Obviously, he faces lots of shots, but he rarely makes errors, but he did in the 21st minute. He kicks the ball away, gives it right to, I want to say, Daniele Rugani. Rugani gives it to Vlahovic, who finds Locatelli, who slides it over to Morata. Goal of the week candidate there. Lovely finish by Morata. First goal of 2022 for him. So you think you're going to be off and running for goals, and that would be the last goal of the game. It was a very stingy game, tough game to play. Spezia do not give you much defensively or offensively. They had some chances at their own, but Szczesny was pretty solid in goal. Juve win 1-0. They're off. This is something like their 14th. I think just Juve tweeted out that it's like their 14th game in Serie A in a row that they haven't lost. So they're on a pretty good unbeaten streak, I would just say. So yeah, lots of games, lots of goals. Frank, what do you want to talk about?
Real quick on Genoa Napoli. I mean, the guys we're touting were brilliant in this game. By Rami, I don't know how he didn't score. He had a great free kick in this game.
Yeah, he did.
And then Portanova had the header that was saved at point blank range, and another one hit the crossbar.
Yeah. That save on Vicario, though, was wonderful on Portanova from distance.
Get Portanova out of Genoa. Okay, yeah. After this he has got to go on a better. Get him on a better team. I think he's going to be a. I'm high on the guy.
He's good.
I think he's going to be a star. Keep getting, but get him in a better environment. And heck, he doesn't need to go to the Seven Sisters. Can you imagine him on Sassuolo? Can you imagine him in the Juricic role?
Oh.
Assume Berardi's still there, and you got Berardi to his right. Oh, good Lord. Yeah, have fun with that, everybody. I mean, just if I'm Sassuolo, I'm trying to figure out if I can get him.
Maybe Fiorentina or something like that too,
Yeah, and if Torino doesn't have luck keeping Brecalo, I'd look in that direction too. I mean, like I said, get him into a better team. And if Genoa gets relegated, that is going to be one of the first guys. I mean, that guy's agent is going to get a ton of calls from Serie A teams. Yeah. So, I like his game. I mean, and today he showed me, hey, I can also get in the box and get into dangerous positions. I can do things that McKennie does. I can take dead balls. I mean, he's got a range to what he does. So, so that impressed me. But Gudmundsson, another guy that they brought over. Yeah. I mean, this guy crosses the ball before he gets off the bus.
Huh?
Yeah, 14 crosses today. My gosh. So I mean, that Genoa Empoli game, that was, if you woke up early for that, you were still entertained. You didn't get any goals.
Yeah.
But you were damn sure entertained. I think that Domenico Berardi continues to make his case for maybe being player of the season, or at least being at the table, because, okay, fine, his 2 goals were penalties, but he created 4 other chances. And he had 3 other chances to score. It was interesting. The penalty that he won, Scamacca took. So that must be a thing. If that Dionisi does. If you drew the foul, you're not taking the penalty. We need you to kind of collect yourself after getting hacked.
Yeah, maybe.
That could be. I don't know. It's a weird. Not something I would think of, but I don't know what went on that they decided to let Scamacca take it, but
Rock, paper, scissors.
they could be doing that too. And Berardi just might be really damn good at rock, paper, scissors.
Maybe, yeah.
And that was just the one time Scamacca won. So I like that. So I don't know if playing Salernitana is the it's clearly a get right game for both Lautaro and Edin Dzeko. But time will tell if this was the start of them getting back on track, or if this was, hey, we got to play Salernitana and we did this to him last time. It was just easy to do it to him again.
Yeah, it's funny because we talked about this last time, or when Milan, when they struggled against Salernitana, is that like the big difference between Milan and Inter versus teams that they should beat is that Inter take care of business, right? This second 5-0 win against Salernitana this year, while Milan struggled mightily against teams like this. So, you need to do well against everybody, and Inter at least do very well against the bottom feeders. I mean, they make it no doubt in your head.
Mm-hmm. Roma sweeps Atalanta.
Yeah,
and we've dogged Roma for years because of their form against the Seven Sisters. And okay, fine, you're still not beating Juve. You might get a win here or there against Milan. You might get something from some of these other guys. Yeah. But sweeping one of them is a step in the right direction. Okay?
Yeah. Mentality-wise especially.
Yep. And a game like this. And the other thing that impresses me, Roma's figuring out how to grind. Okay? They wanted nothing to do with they had no interest in grinding anything out.
Yeah.
When they had Fonseca there, when they had De Francesco there,
Mourinho effect.
Yeah. It's, and when a guy like Mourinho comes in who has a totally different mentality than the managers that you've had, it's going to take a season.
Yes.
Okay? Just like we talk about with Sarri at Lazio, it's going to take a season. You're switching from a 3-back to a 4-back. You're switching to a different style of play and mentality. And we're starting to see some decent things out of Lazio, even though they're still struggling, to beat the big boys per se. But, as it pertains to Roma, yeah, they're learning how to grind some games out, which they haven't done for decades. So it was interesting to see them win this way. Some of it was, I think they had the benefit of Gasperini playing a bit of a makeshift lineup here.
Sure.
I don't know why he doesn't start. He must hate Muriel if he's playing Miranchuk as a false 9.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Muriel's available. The other thing that could be developing here, and it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on with Atalanta, is that Gasperini might be moving his chips to the Europa League basket.
That's a possibility there.
They're in 5th. They have a game in hand on Juventus. They're 6 points out of 4th. But I think with the way they've played in the league this season, I don't think they're going to make top 4. I give Roma more of a chance of making top 4 than Atalanta.
It's crazy that we're saying this, but yeah, I mean, the way Roma's been playing, it looks like also they have like a goal scorer now. Tammy Abraham, 20th goal of the season in all competitions. It's been a while since they had a consistent goal scorer. I mean, obviously it's the Dzeko days, but yeah, I think everything Mourinho's done with his team I think you pegged him as possibly a top 4 contender. I picked
him 4th.
Yeah, I did not. I had him 6th or something, or maybe 5th or 7th. I forget. But yeah, it's just they're finding ways. They're grinding out games. They're getting results. We said when Mourinho came in there that they already had a really good midfield. They had no defense at all, and the striker was as a question mark. He brings in Tammy Abraham. All he does is score goals for them now, and he's scoring goals, against Atalanta, which is great, right? We talked about the last with Napoli, Osimhen not scoring against the big teams, but Tammy Abraham seems to get up for these games, and he scores a goal. Zaniolo, good to see him healthy, and wonderful play, wonderful touch by him to get that ball, corral that ball down and give it to him. They're playing very well, and defensively, they do what they got to do. They grind it out, and like when there is a gap, a mistake, Rui Patricio's right there to back him up. It's a good team. It's like we said all season long. All the haters want to say that Mourinho, get him out, but it's like give him a year, and you're starting to see it now we talked about early season when they were struggling. It's like, give them some time. At the end of the season, they're going to start turning things around slowly but surely. And we're seeing that now and getting results. And, Atalanta had no answer for them. They couldn't do anything against the Roma. So credit goes to Mourinho 100%. The team is buying into whatever he's doing, despite, sometimes their struggles. And I think hard to say that I'm saying this, but yeah, Roma have a real chance at the top 4. They do.
2 defeats in their last 10 games in all competitions, and they were to Inter and Juventus. Okay, so
not bad.
Beat Cagliari, beat Lecce, which was a Copa game.
Yep.
Okay. Beat Empoli, drew Genoa. Everybody's drawing Genoa right now. Lost to Inter in the Copa, drew Sassuolo, drew Verona. Nothing wrong with that right now, the way those teams are playing.
No.
Beat Spezia, beat Atalanta. They're getting it done against the teams they're supposed to get it done against, and then they found a way. They're finding ways to win, and you got to start somewhere when you're talking about Roma. Okay, start by beating the one team that you think you can beat, and apparently they think they can beat Atalanta, and they went out and did it twice.
Their schedule to end the season is not terrible, right? They got Sampdoria. This can be difficult. Salernitana. Napoli is going to be a big game. They're followed by Inter right after that. Bologna, Fiorentina, Venezia, and Torino. So it's not the worst schedule, but let's see if they can put up a good run here, especially against Napoli and Inter. You may be looking at a 4th place team here.
Well, they're at Udinese on Sunday.
Yeah, that'll be hard.
And that's going to be coming off of playing at Vitesse in the conference. They're still in the conference league, by the way.
It's true. I forgot about the competition.
And they got Vitesse. Yeah, it's easy to forget about it. It's like
yeah.
But yeah, to your point, at Udinese, that'll be tough. The derby with Lazio, if you're ready for this, you beat Lazio, you beat your city rival.
Yeah.
Then you're at Sampdoria, who can't stop anybody right now. That Gianpaolo thing was fun for a week. You laugh, but that's serious because look at them; they're crap again.
They're starting Yoshida. That's what happens.
Is that what happened today?
Yeah, it's horrible.
Did he start?
Yeah, and he's the reason all those goals happened.
Oh, there he is. And SofaScore gave him a 7.6 because he got an assist.
Because he was on the camera a lot. That's why.
That's what they do. They drink, and then they say, "Fuck it. We seem to see him on the camera the whole time. We'll just give him a high rating."
That blind donkey. They're just like, I'll pick him. Okay, he's good.
The ones we can't find and we never heard of, we're gonna just say. So, by comparison, Thomas Rincon got a 6.5. Maya Yoshida got a 7.6, and he only got it because of the assist on the goal to Caputo.
Yeah.
Because you look at the rest of these, he 3 fouls. He just runs around and fouls people. He gets to spots late. He loses his markers, but to SofaScore, that's 7.6. Hey. So give me a 7.6. I'm just sitting here drinking beer, talking about it.
They might. I'll check it later.
Good gravy. But then they, and then they host Salernitana. But then it gets interesting. They go to Napoli. They go to Inter back to back.
Yeah.
That where it could get derailed. That's where it could get derailed a little bit. But it's a reasonable. It's a reasonable run into your point. Yeah. So, if they want to be top 4, they have got to get all 3 points from either Napoli or Inter.
Yeah.
Possibly both, but at least one.
Yeah, I agree.
Lazio and Cagliari didn't really have that bad a day. Defensively, they were shocking. Yeah. They created a lot. They're playing a lot better. Marin was really good. Bellanova has been really, really good for them.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be at Milan if Milan didn't have a surplus of right backs. Would have just gone from youth team to professional. Chiro getting a penalty. But then he also was involved on the counterattack for Luis Alberto. So, you can't just sit there and say that Chiro scores a bunch of easy goals. He does what a striker should do. Gets in position, gets in the right place at the right time. That's what you want your goal scorer to do.
Yes.
Okay. But at the same time, he can also come into deeper positions, get the ball, and start counterattacks. And that's what he did there. Played in, he got the hockey assist there on the Luis Alberto goal.
Yeah.
So for those that aren't familiar, in hockey, it's the 2 passers that lead to the goal that'll get credit with the assist. And I think in Major League Soccer, they credit
I thought
two
I heard
passers
that too.
now.
I thought I heard that too.
Yeah, that they do the hockey assist thing when they do it statistically. So that's the way I understand it. But we talk about Cagliari being at least trying to be somewhat formidable at home, and they weren't this time. Lazio rolled. They won 3-0. Did you see how Marusic got sent off?
Yeah. You're already on a yellow, and you're blatantly sticking your hand out to get the ball. I don't know what he's saying. I guess he's like,
that's like when
that's like
when your curfew is like 11 o'clock at night, and he got the yellow, which was going to suspend him for the next game anyway.
He's just like, fuck it.
So when he gets the yellow, it's 11:05. So he's like, well, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to stay out until like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So
I'm already getting in trouble.
Yeah. Just earn the just earn the game, the next match ban.
Yeah.
If you're really going to get it. So that's what that was. So you can tell I'm punchy right now. I've hardly slept. This is what happens when you clean your house for 3 days to get ready to have kids over to come over and trash it. So anyway, but I mean, Serie delivered again. We got some goals. We got some games that didn't have goals. Bologna, Torino. I really have nothing to say.
Yeah, the
shocking.
2-0 games, that wasn't the good one.
Yeah,
that's good.
So, and we're left with a table where we still have a dog. I mean, we're just a new name at the top, and it's Milan. Inter has the game in hand. Once they get it, you got to think that they're gonna, have a little bit of an edge. I do think over the next 5 match days, Napoli are going to slip a little bit, but with Milan having some challenges, with Inter having a few challenges in the run-in, that they'll be able to regain some ground. And then there's Juventus, which because I've gone out and said it on Twitter, Juventus to me is still not I get it. They still win, and we haven't talked about them. It's kind of crazy. We've gone through this whole thing. We haven't talked about Juventus. They still win. They still find ways to win. They found a way to win here against Spezia. It was not beautiful by any stretch of the imagination, but it was effective and it got done.
You want to hear a crazy statistic with Juventus? They've only lost once in their last 19 games. That's as bad as we think they've been playing. Allegri has been quietly doing his thing with all the critics saying everything, and only one loss in their last 19 games. There's a reason why they're back in the hunt all of a sudden out of nowhere. They're not playing pretty. It's not. I mean, Allegri never plays pretty ball, but they're getting results. They're getting results. Well, not mean it wins all the time, but they're getting results, and it's what matters.
I still don't know if I believe in them as a contender.
I don't know, but it's closer and closer.
Yeah.
I mean, third and second are not quite out of the question, or first, honestly. But I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win a Scudetto, but they're in the mix.
Yeah.
They're in reach. Anything can happen.
And I think it's because Bonetti keeps asking it on Twitter, and I keep telling, I'm sure they're not a contender. That's really why I'm doing it now.
Oh,
I don't think I have any real concrete reason to say, I just think
McKinney's out for the rest of the year, so that could be something against them.
And that's what I think is going to, I think that the
injuries are catching
injuries and the lack of depth in midfield.
He had 5 subs on the bench in this game against Lazio. They had nobody.
They're not going to be able to get through the rest of this season with the fitness issues that they have. So, I mean, they will. They'll complete the season. But to a point where they can win a Scudetto, it would probably be the most impressive of their 30-plus Scudettos that they've ever won. Yeah. It would be really hard to, So, but the way they play, it's just like, I saw a beautiful Juventus in the mid-'90s under Lippi.
Sure.
And it's just, I watched this Juventus, and I said it when they were playing Villarreal in the Champions League. I said, nobody takes the fun out of football more than Max Allegri. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah.
That was eyeball eating against Villarreal.
It was.
Just hurt. That was hurt. It was like, I actually felt physical pain watching that game. I did.
Yeah, no, it's fair. But, with Allegri and Juventus, you just have to go back to that Denny Green quote, right? You play to win the game.
That was Herm Edwards, actually.
Herm Edwards. Oh, okay. What did Denny Green say? I forgot what he said. What did Denny Green say?
Oh, they are who we thought they were.
Yeah,
let them off the hook.
Oh, that too. That works here too.
You want to crown them? Crown their ass.
They are who we thought they were, but as Herm Edwards says, yeah, you play to win the game, and
Yep.
I don't know if they're winning the game, but they're getting the points. They're
Yep.
playing to win the Scudetto, I guess, maybe.
Agreed.
I don't know.
Agreed. Your thoughts on what you saw with everything? I rambled. I went nuts, and as I usually do.
Pulling back up the scores. I mean, for a 0-0 game, the Genoa Empoli game, you already talked about it, but that was a fairly entertaining game for 0-0. We talked about how impressive Roma were in their 1-0 win and their sweep of Atalanta this season. Fiorentina against Hellas Verona, that was an interesting game. We talked Piontek. It's again the system. He's getting the goals. He's got 5 goals now in 7 games, or 5 goals in 8 games, whatever. He's got more goals than Vlahovic since the move. Fiorentina are still they're figuring things out. They were going for the kill in the game. Hellas is a very good team. We talked about how now under Tudor they're even more attack minded. They got 3 10-goal scorers, the double-digit goal scorers. But at the end of that game, they were going for that win. Vincenzo Italiano was trying to get that win, and you love that with Fiorentina. If they're going to keep ascending up the table as the years, next year and the year after, because of stuff like this, they need to have that killer instinct and trying to go for the wins. So I love seeing that. And really, outside of everything else we've talked about, my confidence in Venezia staying in the league is dwindling week by week now. I mean,
it's a shame.
It is. Those lovely kits, lovely home jerseys. A lot of the players are really fun to watch and they're decent, but they can't stop scoring. They kept giving up goals, and Sassuolo scoring 4 goals against them. That's a team who scores for fun sometimes, and they did in this game. But you got to feel hard done by them because they gave up 3. There's 4 penalties in the game, but 3 of them went against them. And granted, they're penalties. They were penalties, but man, it's never easy to let alone give up 1 or 2 penalties, but 3 penalties in the game. It's tough, man. You're not gonna stay up with plays like that, I guess. So I don't know.
Right. What do I want to get to next? I don't have anything for goals of the week. I mean, I think for me, it's the Abraham goal mainly because of the beautiful first touch out of the air by Zaniolo.
Oh, that was pretty, wasn't it?
Yep. I just looking at everything else, there wasn't a lot of quality in the goals this week. There wasn't anything that I could look at and say, yeah, that was.
Yeah, so my top 5 isn't so much goals. So like my honorable mentions, I like the Piontek goal, the quick reaction by him. Lautaro's third I mentioned, that was an honorable mention. Morata's goal was nice. Concili had a penalty kick save. I like that. My top 5, I had Felipe Anderson's dancing goal, and you could say that was a defensive week, but it was nice. And I mean, it's my top 5. That's how weak the goals were. Number 4 for me, Vicario's save in Portanova. I really like that save. It was a huge save in that game. Tammy Abraham actually came 3rd for me. I love the touch by Zaniolo. I love the goal by Tammy Abraham. I thought Luis Alberto's goal was better because Luis Alberto made a similar move in his own end to kind of started the counterattack and then finished it off. He hustled, big boy hustled down the pitch to get that goal. But number 1 for me, not even a goal. It's back to that Genoa Empoli game, is the goal line clearance by Eslani, making kind of like a volley bicycle kick on the goal line to clear it away.
Okay.
You watch the replay and it's even better than when you saw it in live play. So that's my number 1 play of the week right there.
Okay. I'll go with it. So
screw the goals.
But I'm still going with the Abraham goal on the Zaniolo first touch. Sublime, taking that out of the air the way he did. So Europe, let's get through it quick. Inter play this week. I believe it's Tuesday. They play at Anfield against Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-0 deficit. 2-0 deficit going to Anfield. I think they'll score, but I think they're going to lose the game. I don't think this goes well here. I'm going to go 2-1 to Liverpool. I mean, we broke down a lot of the things tactically. We weren't surprised by a lot of what we saw.
Yeah.
I think that Inter had golden opportunities to get something out of the first game to make it a reasonable fight at Anfield. Clearly, Liverpool's going to have to show up with their best team, and they're going to do so. But I think in the end, I think that back 3 still, Salernitana had a couple of okay chances against them, but didn't get to them enough. I don't see, and I look at how Liverpool play at Anfield. I think they're going to put that back three under. They're going to press them.
Yeah.
They're going to create a lot of problems. Inter's not, when they get play out of the back, they are not comfortable when they're pressed. And I think that's going to go a big, big way. And I think that Liverpool get a goal out of winning the ball off of that. I'm going to go 3-1. Actually, I'll go 3-1 to Liverpool. And they beat Inter 5-1 on aggregate. And I'm not saying this is an Inter hater. I bang the drum for City. I'd love to see Inter go through. This is a Liverpool team that is at another level right now. As far as defensively, I think since the calendar year turned, they've only conceded like 3 goals in all competitions. They've really gotten it together. And I can't see where Inter turn this around in England. It just isn't happening. 3-1 Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, both teams are in similar situations, right? They're both second in the table, very close to, they're within striking distance of the top spot. So you can't say that one has an advantage over the other in that regards. And they're both would love to move on to the Champions League to the next round, I should say. Away goals is gone, so that's a benefit for Inter, because certainly those 2 goals have been massive. They would have to score 3 goals, in that regard, which I don't see happening at all. Yeah, I mean, Brozovic is going to have to play a lot better than he did. The midfield's got to play better. I think instead of starting Lautaro, despite him having a hat trick, start Alexis Sanchez, use his experience. Maybe he can find a way to craft a goal using his guile and his experience. Having Denzel Dumfries out there, maybe put Robin Gosens in there if he's fit enough to start. Having both those, maybe a threat there. It's not going to be easy at all. I feel though like the perfect ending for a typical Milan or Serie or Italian drama would be that Inter find 2 goals, get it to extra time, and then lose 4-2.
Okay.
Make it 2-2. They end up losing in overtime. So I'm gonna say somehow they get it to overtime or extra time, but they're gonna lose it still.
You're an eternal optimist.
Yeah, I am.
This is done in 90 minutes on Tuesday. I can't.
Might be done in 45. Might be done in 45.
It might. Inter Inzaghi might want to consider taking some youth team players with him and just giving them a run out in the last 10 minutes. So I can't see Inter turning this around. So
they did that in the first leg, didn't they? I think they brought some youth players at the end of that game. Maybe I'm thinking.
Yep. And we've got one lone survivor in the Europa League. Atalanta drew Bayer Leverkusen, Richard.
Yeah.
An old friend of Serie, Patrick Schick, back in the mix. And leading Bayer Leverkusen. He has scored 20 goals this season.
Yeah, not bad.
Danger man up front. I mean, this is if Leverkusen decides they want to go to Bergamo and play their best team. You got him to worry about. You've got Moussa Diaby to worry about, who's incredibly dynamic. Oh, by the way, this young kid, Florian Wirtz, 7 goals and 10 assists this season.
Yeah,
he's
not bad.
I mean, he's elevated his game. I mean, there are some options on this Bayer Leverkusen team, and they can score for fun if you let them. This Atalanta team defensively have been weak enough for me to worry about it. But at the same time, I've seen Bayer Leverkusen be in spots like this and be very naive defensively. They do have Finland's international goalkeeper Hradecki in goal. Hradecki, yeah. Yep. You watch more Bundesliga than I do. I know enough Leverkusen to be dangerous. I think this is going to be if you got nothing else going on Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern time, and you've got Paramount Plus, turn this game on. This is going to be fun.
Yeah,
I'm going 2-2. It's going to be. There's going to be goals here.
I think there are going to be goals here. I think both these teams are certainly going to get some goals in this one. Bayer Leverkusen, if they had the top 4 locked up, I would say, yeah, there's no chance they're going to bring some bodies in. But they do have to worry about that still, because Tedesco and Leipzig are on a surge back up the table, and they're only 4 points behind Leverkusen, who are sitting in 3rd place at the moment. So they're going to have an eye on that. You wonder, you mentioned it, with Atalanta after they played Roma, are there full intentions in Europa League now, or is it kind of still split? I think if Gasperini puts his best team out there, and you expect Bayer to do the same thing, it's going to be a fun game. I mean, I see nothing short of 2-2 in that game. I think you're going to see some goals in that game, but it's going to be tricky to see who thinks they're more comfortable in the league than the other. If they both think they're in a struggle, they may not put their best 11 out there, and we don't know what Gasperini is thinking. You would imagine that he wants to do well in one of these tournaments. Obviously, Champions League didn't go as expected, so he's going to want to go deep in Europa League. But Bayer Leverkusen are more than capable of handing them their ass, and Patrick Schick has had a rejuvenation since going to Bundesliga. So it's going to be a fun game. I agree with you. If you're neutral, watch this game because you're going to see some goals. You're going to see the open play. I don't see a defensive stalemate whatsoever this game.
Okay, and let's really quick talk Roma and Vitesse. This is actually the first leg is in
Netherlands.
It's in the Netherlands, yes. Guys you want to worry about with Vitesse, they have a striker by the name of Luis Openda, 11 goals on the season. Belgian international, young guy, which is, when you go to play Eredivisie teams, they're usually very young. They're in their early. They're usually a lot of players in their early 20s, playing there as a springboard for their next paycheck and their next big opportunity. Openda's a guy that's going to provide the goals. He's a shorter guy, so he's not a guy that you're going to look at aerially. That's something that Roma can take away. So I feel like Roma, if a Mourinho coach, Roma will be very good at being able to deny passing lanes and taking things away from him. The guy that they got to neutralize from midfield if he starts is this Maximilian Vitek, German international player, playmaking midfielder. Usually likes to come from the left-hand side, and create some things for them as well. Ili Dasa is another guy that you probably want to keep an eye out for, in terms of playmaking midfielders, guys that can probably put a little bit of pressure on Roma's defense. That said, if Roma's really invested in this, I think they take an advantage back to the Olimpico. I'm going to go Roma 2-1.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're going to see Mourinho, especially the way Roma's been playing lately. I think they're very much understanding what Mourinho kind of wants from them, and I think they're going to try to grind this one out and try to get a favorable result going back home. And I think a 1 or 2-0 win. I think 1 or 2 goal win. I don't see giving them much offensively, allowing Vitesse to score anything. And I think they're going to get at least 1, if not 2 goals to walk away with a nice lead coming back home.
Okay, perfect. So those are the European teams in action this week. We do have Juventus in the Champions League the following week. We'll talk about them next week. So let's see how that all plays out. And we finally wrap this up, Richard, with the world's most famous hashtag game. It's time for Who Won Calcio Twitter, a very abbreviated version. I did put in a last-minute nominee, but why don't you do the honors and take it away?
All right. First off, this one is AJ. It's at Fino Alfine 282, and he says, Napoli fans in my mentions when I say they haven't won a Serie in a long time. You made a joke. Oh, these women yelling at
Okay, women out there, why do you that do this? Why do you do this? This is only funny for us.
Wow, AJ. He's the leader of the clubhouse.
You get in your car, you put your seatbelt on for good measure. You probably got something you can hook up your little camera and you do a little selfie video to just get mad at the world. I mean, nobody. I mean, when I see a video like that, I got no interest in. Just not interested. And I'm just like, you're gonna piss and moan about something I don't care about. Okay, so. You've already lost me.
That's Napoli fans, so
yeah, you lost me at sitting in a car and throwing your seatbelt on and hooking up your video to a something you've got on your dashboard. I don't know what those things are. I don't have one, so it's not that important to me. But anyway, at Napoli San Sony saying Balotelli is spot on. I am 100% sure that my quality is the same level as these people, Messi and Ronaldo, but I missed some chances. And at Dan Calcio, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike.
Nicely done, Dan.
That is the polite way of saying if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle.
Yep. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, moving on.
Okay, now Anthony's agreeing with me. It's annoying, Frank, when women do it. Okay, but how about men? It's actually worse.
Yeah.
It's actually worse.
Rafa Biz nominates the next one. It's actually Joe Fischetti. He's head of the podcast. So the original tweet was Napoli with their millionth kit of the season before this game. And so Joe says, Inter issued a $450 million bond to refinance existing debt. Juventus issued a $400 million in new capital shares, $250 million of which were underwritten by the company Exor. We make new kits. I'm fine with that.
All right. Nice work. Apparently only Napoli people find that funny, though. So, but it's all right. It's all right.
Self-deprecating.
Yep. Let's see. So Sabrina, our friend Sabrina Belmonte at SabriB10, retweeting some numbers here on Pierre Kalulu and his performance against Napoli. 21 and already an old hand. Clown to clown at clown_2_clown. Pierre was detained upon return to Milan. It took Carabinieri and emergency services a full hour to get Osimhen out of his pocket. Kalulu gave a statement after the incident saying, "I simply forgot he was in there." All right.
Nice. And then you nominated this last one here from JR. Everything is on the line, 75% of it. So the comment you phrase is it's at 100% capacity or whatever you said, but it's only 75% capacity. And it says everything's on the line, 75% of it.
I love how with this guy that every week is the biggest match of the year. I don't want to go into a full-on look, I'm walking on eggshells because a lot of our listeners like him. But, I mean, come on. You can't come on the mic and you got to be – I mean, you're given an opportunity to actually – when you're in that spot and, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're in that spot, aren't you giving an opportunity to maybe – you can pre-plan what you want to say?
I think so.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
And that's what comes out. So it's what it is. So it's what it is.
So who you got?
I think we're going with Fino Alafine 282.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't know how Napoli fans will take that, but it was pretty funny. I thought it had 200 likes.
It just adds misery to their day.
It does. At least Joe's not here to see this, so.
Yeah,
he'll be tagged though.
Isn't that funny? We get the Napoli guy on, and then we decide to pick the one that
fun of Napoli.
Yeah, it wouldn't be us if we didn't do it.
That's true. That is true.
So AJ at Fino Alafine 282. I think that's his first win.
Yeah. It's a good follow. Some people hate him, some people don't. But he thinks he's the most.
He is certainly polarizing. He's a certainly polarizing man.
Sure. Yeah. I enjoyed the follow, so.
All right, so I will plug this in this week. You're going to be on Raff and Raff Rant tomorrow night, right?
I am.
I'm a game time decision.
Game time decision. All right.
Yep.
Looking forward to talk more Roma, Napoli, Milan for sure.
Yep. So if I'm not on, I mean, absolutely catch Richard on the Raff and Raff Rant, Rafa Rispo, Raff_Biz at Raff_Biz, and they're great guys. They do a great job covering all things Napoli, and we appreciate them giving us some airspace to come on and chat with them about the game. Guys, if you're listening or if you're watching or whatever the case may be, I do hope to come on tomorrow night. I'm just trying to figure out how, kind of things are going on the home front, if I can squeeze an hour of my time to be able to sit down and chat about the game with you. If not, you're in excellent hands with Richard. So, so that is that. And I think with anything else, Richard, I think we can put a bow on this edition of Serie Sit Down. So I'll turn it to you for the shameless plug.
Yeah, we'll go ahead. First off, the Rafa Rant guys, both Rafa Biz and Rafa Rispo, definitely give them a follow. Give their podcast a follow. Really great stuff. Put quality content. They really looks nice as well. Definitely give Joe Fischetti a follow. His Forza Napoli podcast as well. And then last shout out, I'm going to give actually Jerry Mancini. Had a very personal tweet the other day about his struggles with depression at the moment, and that stigma it is with depression, and people don't want to talk about it. We really need to talk about it more. I think to shed that stigma. And so, bravo to Jerry for coming out and talking about it. And I'm glad that hopefully he's doing well, and we're with him. So keep it up.
I've always been a firm believer that when it comes to things like that, the best thing that you can do is just reach out and talk to somebody.
100%.
Get help. I mean, it's the best thing you can do for yourself. Because there are some really, really scary alternatives, and we don't want to see you take any of those. So, so Jerry, hope you find what you're looking for. Hope, you find some happiness. Jerry's been a big fan of what we do. We've had him on. He's been insightful, when we've had him on. I think, interestingly enough about Jerry, I think he's at his most polite when he's on our podcast.
Oh, yeah. He's on he's on good behavior then.
Right. So, and we appreciate that. But, so hopefully, hopefully that. Do you want to answer Anthony's question?
Yeah,
he wants to know, somebody actually, this is the first time
if you want to hear about us.
This is the first time in 6 years that I've ever heard anyone ask, hey, where can I learn more about Schalke?
Yeah, if you want to hear about the misery that I follow on in the division of German football, yeah, Schalke America, definitely give that a follow. You'll get to hear me cry every week with their non-chance of promotion, and again this year, who knows? They just fired their coach today, so it's not looking good. But yeah, like you said, I watched a lot of Bundesliga. I don't watch as much Bundesliga this year because I'm struggling to find second division matches. But yeah, follow me in Schalke America.
Yeah. I watched Bundesliga a lot last year, but I was also gambling on it a lot last year. I'm not gambling on it at all this year. So
just other things.
Yep. just other things. So I'm not even gambling that much. Although thank you, Riyad Mahrez, for that 90th minute goal that got me made me a backdoor profit. So
this podcast we talked about gangbangs and backdoor profits. All right.
I didn't talk. I didn't say a damn thing about gangbangs. Where did that come from?
I said that earlier.
Did I miss that?
You did. I was talking about how Tamori and Kalulu gangbanged Osimhen.
Oh, okay.
Slip of the tongue.
It's Lent, and right now I'm trying to surrender myself to Jesus and
never mind. I'll stop there.
Trying to be more Christ-centered. So I think I just immediately block out stuff like that. So you have the horns, I have the halo. Who thought that was going to happen?
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're talking enough. You can find me at FTC_21. Serie Sit Down. We have our own channel at Apple Podcasts, iCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there's podcasts. There's Serie Sit Down as I'm gently bringing this thing back on the rails. At Serie Sit Down on Twitter or Instagram for any comments, questions, thoughts. You can also find us on Facebook. And we will be back at you next Sunday night. While you guys are all worried about brackets and college basketball teams, take a break from that. Detach yourself and center yourself on the Calcio, and come and join us next Sunday night. Sound good, Richard? All right, he says yes. That'll do it for this week of Serie Sit Down. What a week it was. Let's pull for our Serie teams this week in Europe and have a chance to talk about it next week. For Richard, I'm Frank. As always, tell your paisans about us. Ciao.